Welcome everyone. My name is Shannon Schaff, and I'm the Executive Director of the CFA Society of Minnesota. And we're very excited today to partner with Loomis Sales and Melissa Partridge to bring this webinar to you. We've had a lot of interest, so I think you're going to enjoy the content, and there'll be some opportunities for interaction and engagement as we learn more about how to consider board service in a nonprofit. And Melissa, could you go to the next slide? I do want to also make sure to thank all of our annual sponsors. So you can see them on the screen. It's because of our annual sponsors that we can bring you great content like this. So we're very appreciative of everyone that's supporting us in 2025. And then if you want to go to the next one. Looks like it started yours. Well, I'll let, so Melissa will introduce herself, and then when we get to our panelists, then each panelist will introduce themselves. So I'll turn it over to Melissa to start the session.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad that you could join us. As Shannon said, my name is Melissa Partridge. I am the Director of Community Investments here at Loomis Sales. I am based in Boston, as is my team, but we serve all of our offices across the globe, including our team in Minneapolis. So maybe at some point I'll get a chance to meet some of you personally. I'll get started by saying I have heard from many people at work and in my network their desire to join a nonprofit board, but just being really uncertain of what it entails. Also, how do you even get started or find the right fit? At the same time, I've worked with several nonprofits that are in search of board members. They're very invested in their cause, and they're looking for people who can bring great skills and networks to their board. So it only made sense to develop and offer a session like this, and I hope you get a lot from it today. I would love to hear your questions. We're going to hold them to the end, but if something pops up to you and you want to put it in the chat, we'll make sure we cover it at the end of the presentation. Some of the goals for this session today are understanding the value of joining a nonprofit board, understanding the roles and responsibilities of serving on a board, and then how do you find that right fit? And then we're going to give you some takeaways. I'll have some materials that we'll send you after this presentation that can help you as you look to find a fit of a nonprofit. All right. People ask, what do I do in my day job? What is my team all about? And you may have that at your own firm. And if you do, I encourage you to go and meet them and talk to them. They could be really helpful to you as you make your nonprofit journey. But basically, our mission here at Loomis is to represent the passions and interests of our employees. We look to support nonprofits that help individuals and families in areas of cities where we have our offices that are most in need, and to be an authentic stakeholder in the communities where we work and live. My team oversees corporate philanthropy, so we give grants to nonprofits, employee engagement, so that's getting our employees out in the communities, volunteering and serving on boards. And then we have a bucket called expanding diversity. And so what is that? We actually have an undergraduate internship program in the summer that is for first generation college students. So the first in their families to go to college. And the reason I raise it is because we look to a lot of our nonprofit partners to help source interns as they've worked with many of these students through elementary school, middle school, high school, and into college and career. All right, so let's get started. Why join a board? There's many reasons why you should join a board. I think the first and foremost is really you want to support a cause you care about. Many people join boards because they have a passion for a cause. This cause may have helped them personally, or they may truly care about their community and would like to make a difference. Another reason is to expand your network. Board service is a great way to expand your personal and your professional network and to connect with like-minded but diverse people. And the last piece is developing leadership skills. Board service is a great way to share specific skills you've developed throughout your career, like hiring practices, financial analysis, marketing expertise. But serving on a board is also a great way to develop leadership skills by heading a committee or working on a governance committee. This is also a great opportunity for younger professionals to flex leadership muscle should they not have this opportunity yet in their day job. So what could board service look like? Boards come in many shapes and sizes, from a formal commitment to committee work. It could be event committees. And these are just a few examples of different types of boards. You will find that the names can differ from nonprofit to nonprofit, but the main thing you'll see is board of directors, and that really is a formal structure. They are there as the main governing body. They oversee activities, establish the nonprofit's mission, strategy, and goals. They will have a set of bylaws that will guide their work. The next is an advisory board. It's typically a little lighter touch. Many times nonprofits will use an advisory board as a next step as someone terms out on a board of directors. They don't want to lose that person or the institutional knowledge or the great advice they give. So they'll keep them engaged by rolling them off to an advisory board. You will see a lot that nonprofits can try to build their pipeline to a board. And they do that by creating associate, emerging leaders, young professionals. These boards or councils that are really getting an earlier wave or a younger wave to come in, get involved with the cause, learn their culture, learn their activities, and then when ready, some of these emerging leaders or early career professionals can then roll to a formal board of directors. There's voluntary boards, standing committees, ad hoc committees. You could be recruited to sit on the finance committee, but not actually serve as a formal board member. Galas, events are always looking for committees, which is a great way to engage. So I don't want to belabor the point, but there are many different ways that you can get involved. There are some pretty serious fiduciary responsibilities that are a foundation for being on a board. And board members should take this seriously. These responsibilities are duty of care, duty of loyalty, and duty of obedience. The first pillar, duty of care, speaks to being an engaged board member. You'll show up, you'll be invested, you'll be passionate. This means actively participating in meetings, being aware and invested in the mission and the activities of the nonprofit, and being a champion for the organization in the community, but also in your personal and professional networks. The next pillar is duty of loyalty, and that means putting the best interest of the nonprofit first over personal interests and disclosing any conflicts. I'll raise later that many of your organizations probably require you to report if you do get involved in outside activities. Being on a board could fall under that umbrella as well. And then lastly is the duty of obedience. And that basically means this nonprofit and my engagement, we're following the law. We're submitting required filings to the appropriate governing agencies and following the nonprofit's guidelines. Okay. Next up, I'm going to try my technology skills here. We have a short video, and funny enough, this video comes from an organization in your backyard if you happen to be in Minneapolis. It's called Propel Networks. They serve as an intermediary for nonprofits and a resource. Again, as you're going through and looking to get connected to more nonprofits, they would be a great resource for you. So they have a short video that's going to talk about the 5 main responsibilities of nonprofit service. So let me find this. Okay.
Whether you are on the board of a large nonprofit or an all-volunteer organization, you need to have a clear understanding of your role as a board member in contributing to your organization's mission. Legal compliance and financial oversight are certainly on the list of board responsibilities, but they are not enough for effective governance. We believe board members have 5 primary responsibilities: providing strategic leadership, managing for financial stability, serving as an ambassador for the organization, supporting and supervising the executive director or CEO, and ensuring healthy governance. Keep the board focused on the big picture and oriented to the future. Staff handle more of the day-to-day operations of running the organization. Let's start with leading strategically. This means you are in charge of the big picture. You are there to develop and communicate the organization's direction, goals, and a plan to get there. Nonprofits will periodically go through the strategic planning process, and this can be a time when your board can shine. Along with having a plan, leading strategically includes monitoring and evaluating programs, as well as monitoring outcomes, impact, and performance of the organization. Financial statements and planning documents are great tools to inform strategic leadership. Next, let's talk about financial stability. It's essential to an organization's viability and success, and a big part of your role. No matter your experience with finance, know that every nonprofit business model is different. Be sure you understand your organization's business model. You'll also need to ensure your organization has adequate infrastructure to create accurate and timely financials. Make sure you can understand your organization's financial reports. Develop strategies to fund your mission that are realistic and that support your organization's business model. Lastly, ensure you follow state and federal regulations. This includes 990 filings, audits, and registration with the Secretary of State and Attorney General. Another very important role you play as a board member is to be an ambassador, an advocate, a superhero even. You are expected to cultivate relationships that are beneficial to the organization's mission and strategic goals. Participate in fundraising efforts of your organization. This includes donating personally and supporting fund development in other ways, such as sharing fundraising efforts and events with your own network. And remember, the number one reason people join boards is because they were asked. Asking others to participate is part of being an ambassador. Listen to community members' needs related to your mission. Share the impact of your nonprofit on the community. Learn what tools are available to you to help tell your organization's story. Next, let's focus on how you support your organization's leader. Your role as a board includes supervising, supporting, and evaluating the performance of the executive director annually. You'll also recruit and hire the executive director or CEO. You should also have an emergency and long-term succession plan for the executive director. And hey, ask the executive director how they want to be supported. Different executive directors need different support from their boards. Last, let's talk about overall governance. When you are a board member, you do have some legal responsibilities: the duty of care, the duty of loyalty, and the duty of obedience. Duty of care means that as a board, you should be actively participating and attending meetings. Duty of loyalty means putting the interest of the organization first. If you have a conflict, be sure to disclose it. Duty of obedience means following the law, ensuring compliance, and reviewing bylaws. Your board should also reflect the community you are working within. That means recruiting and onboarding new board members that represent the full range of backgrounds, views, and experiences in your community. It's also important to have a mix of skills around the table. To keep board engagement up, you have to engage people based on both skills and on where their passions lie. Leading strategically, ensuring financial stability, being an ambassador, supporting your leader, and ensuring healthy governance. All of these are necessary all the time, but not always in the same dosage. Your focus will shift as your organization evolves. The board and how it spends its time will change over time. Effective boards are an important contributor to nonprofit mission success. It starts with understanding your roles and responsibilities.
Okay. Hopefully you enjoyed that. So now I'm going to dive into these responsibilities a little deeper. Okay. So we heard about providing strategic leadership. We heard about financial stability, being an ambassador, supporting, supervising, an executive director, and then governance. These are all very important things. So over the next few slides, we'll dive in a little deeper. I'll have some questions that maybe you should think about, and then things you could ask a nonprofit as you're considering joining their board. So the first thing is providing strategic leadership. One of the main responsibilities of the board is to provide a strategic vision in collaboration with an executive director to have the most impact on a cause. This is not doing the work of the staff. It really should be serving as a strategic advisor that can see the big picture and help establish goals and steps to get the nonprofit to full impact in their community. Typically, a board will participate in a strategic planning process alongside the nonprofit leader, its staff, and the stakeholders. And this typically happens every few years. I'd say 3 to 5 years, maybe a little longer, but it should be around that 5-year mark. Nonprofits, like anyone, should have a plan that they can follow to get to where they need to go, and a strategic plan is the tool that will do that. The other thing I'll say that you can look at that's very helpful is many nonprofits publish annual reports. These reports give a great summary of the mission, the programs, and impact a nonprofit is having in their community. I would recommend looking at their annual report to get key foundational information. And you can typically find this on their website, or they'll share it with you openly. Uh-oh, Pat, I think you're sharing your screen right now. Oops. Sorry about that.
So I didn't see you share your screen, so I was trying to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is my screen not sharing?
What's not?
I can stop sharing if.
I'm sorry about that. I'm glad you flagged this. Okay. Hold on a minute. There we go. There we go. First time on Zoom, just kidding. So some things that you should think about in this responsibility is, really focusing on the big picture and then helping develop and communicate the organization's directions, goal, and plan. You'll see over the next few slides, I break it down. What are some things to ask yourself around this responsibility? First and foremost, what skills do you bring to the table? Are you a big picture person? Are you a systems thinker? Can you operationalize strategy? For some people, that's a challenge. For others, they relish it. How much time can you really devote to the board? Sometimes strategic planning processes can take a while, and they can require some extra meetings, some weekends, some extra time. So thinking about that. But then when you flip it, things to ask the nonprofit: what are the short and long-term goals of the board? What do you expect from us? When was the last time that you went through a strategic planning process? How does this nonprofit fit within its landscape and its peers? Who are the peers? It's always good to know kind of the context. And then again, asking about that annual report, that can be very helpful. That gives really good summary information. All right. Managing for financial stability. This is a big one. So for many of you in this presentation, analyzing the financial stability of an organization is your day job, and it's really no different for nonprofits. It is imperative that nonprofits in some ways think of themselves as for-profits. Do they have a business model? Do they have a diversified revenue stream? Do they have reserves in place? And are they looking ahead at any shifts in their respective markets or sectors or communities? Most importantly, do they have the appropriate systems and processes in place for fiscal oversight. Are they in compliance? Are they filing their 990s and all the important paperwork? The Form 990, which I'll get to on the next slide, is really the key to understanding a nonprofit's financial viability. So again, questions to ask yourself. Is this an area where I feel I have the skills and interest to engage in? If you're doing a lot of financial analysis in your day job, you might say, home run, I could bring this to the nonprofit. You may also say, wait a minute, I do this in my day job. I don't want to do this when I'm like in off hours or volunteering my time. I'd rather do something different. That is totally fine. Just be clear about how you want to participate and feel really comfortable saying no. If you don't want to be the finance person, it is totally okay for that. And then again, will you have that time to commit to the level of engagement and any financial projects that a nonprofit might need? Questions to ask them and feel very comfortable being straightforward with them. Are you financially healthy as an organization? Do you have accounting systems? Do you have dedicated staff? Are there safeguards in place? These all sound very routine to us, but they are questions that should be asked because sometimes nonprofits may not have all of this, and you could be great in helping them establish this. Asking them to share the following documents. Can I see your audited financials? Can I see your latest 990? Do you have a profit and loss statement? These are all really important documents. All right, the Form 990. This is what the top half of the Form 990 looks like. And it is filed by a nonprofit to the IRS so that they can maintain their tax exempt status. It is not designed to determine taxes, anything like that. It is just really a report to ensure that the organization is handling funds properly and disclosing it, and that there is no fraud or any fraudulent activities going on. Every nonprofit must file this annually according to their fiscal year end, and that can range from nonprofit to nonprofit. Some might be a calendar year fiscal year, some might be a school year, so September to June. It really can change, so don't be nervous if you see different starts and ends. Also, believe it or not, the IRS takes some time to review things, go figure. So if you don't see like perfect years of 990, so right now we're in 2025, you want to go look at XYZ nonprofit, you're noticing there's no 990 for 2024 or even 2023. And you're thinking that makes me nervous. Why don't they have this filed? Well, there's usually a lag time of 12 to 18 months until it's publicly posted. So I would say the latest 990 that you will typically find is within that 2-year window, maybe sometimes 3, but I would say a 2-year window you would find that. Some big items to look for on a 990 are revenue less expenses, which should be even or slightly positive. You'll see a list of highest paid employees. It's really not a bad thing if they have highly paid employees. But one thing to note is 65% of a nonprofit's expenses should be on programming, and within that programming bucket, it should include salaries. So that should be all rolled up in that. Through the 990, you'll see the budget, you'll see fundraising totals, you'll see grants. This is important because it gives you a window into how they fund themselves and what that looks like, how much money is coming in. And then I'd say lastly, 990 should be really easy to find. Nonprofits in good standing will be very transparent. Many post them to their website so you can easily find it under their financials. But there is a website that I go to a lot. It's called Candid. And it's a great site that sets up profiles for different nonprofits. It can have their website address. It can have an annual report. But many times they do have their 990s on there, so you can click on them and look through them yourself. There will be a handout that we'll send out after. The California Community Foundation has put together this really good quick guide on how to read a 990 or key things you should look for. It's a 2-pager. So I'll make sure that gets to all of you after this presentation. Okay. Serving as an ambassador, this should be pretty intuitive and one of the more natural responsibilities, I would say. You're going to get drawn to the nonprofit because you care about it, or you're invited, or you're passionate or really enthusiastic about it. So I feel like the ambassadorship is one of the easier lifts when you think of the responsibility. And it should be one of the most important reasons you want to serve on the board. The key to being an ambassador is to what degree you can serve in this role and how comfortable you are with opening up your network and potentially your wallet. Depending on the size of the nonprofit or the board, you can be either very hands-on or hands-off when it comes to involvement in fundraising, committee work, getting the word out about the organization. You really decide how much you want to be involved. Many times you'll hear the term time versus treasure. So as a board member, there could be a financial commitment that is expected for you to serve on the board, but also there could be a value to your time, your skills, and more importantly, the network that you could bring to this nonprofit. And sometimes that's more valuable than a financial contribution. I do urge you to have the explicit conversation around the contributions a board member must bring to the nonprofit. So if there is an expectation of you writing a check, at what level is that? It's okay to get really clear about that. I have seen from times to time, there are that push and pull of so-and-so hasn't made his donation yet. Just be really clear about what that expectation is. And what the trade-offs are if maybe financially you can't give the higher end of the spectrum or it's not a good time. Well, maybe the trade-off is your skills or your network, or you can help facilitate sponsorships. Maybe that will suffice. For early career professionals, they might not be at a place to do this right now. But their time and their energy is just as valuable. I think at the end of the day, the most important questions are, do I believe so strongly in this cause and this organization that I would be comfortable advocating for it to my friends, my family, and my professional networks? And do I feel so strongly that I feel comfortable making a personal financial contribution to the cause? One thing I'll flag, because we have it here at Loomis, we actually have a benefit to our employees. It's called Dollars for Doers. So we will give $2,000, no commitment, nothing out of pocket for the employee, but it's really there for if you're giving a lot of your time through volunteerism, you're serving on a board, Loomis will write a check for $2,000 directly to the nonprofit as here's an extra contribution. For many of our employees, they use that to offset any personal donation that might be expected, or they use it towards a sponsorship for an event or something of that nature. So I think it's very worthwhile to ask your organization if that's something that they do. Again, responsibility is your time versus your treasure, and how do they value that? Questions to ask yourself. Is this an area where I have the skills and interest to engage in? Am I comfortable engaging my network or company to support this nonprofit? If not, do I have boundaries around it? And what is it? And am I comfortable saying it out loud? Will I have, again, the time to commit to the level of engagement or fundraising activities that the nonprofit may need? Things to ask the nonprofit. How much of your budget is reliant on fundraising? This is a very, very important question. Many times people don't or underestimate how many asks or what they will be doing, or if it is a heavy lift, it's very important to ask the question. Have you historically met or exceeded your fundraising goals, your grant goals, your financial goals? What are the requirements or the contributions that board members are expected to make? And then what events happen? Where am I expected to be there? Is it volunteering in the community? Is it showing up at the annual gala? What is it? How can I be of service? Supporting and supervising an executive director. Supporting and supervising the executive director is an important role board members take, but it can also be the trickiest, as it depends really on a healthy relationship between the board and an executive director. And it really relies on that relationship to be defined. An important first question is, does there appear to be a good relationship between the board and leadership? Hopefully you'll get a sense of this as you get to know the nonprofit, or if you have a contact who is recruiting you onto the board, hopefully they'll give you some very candid insight on what that relationship looks like. If you decide to join, you'll most likely find out during an onboarding phase. You'll have the opportunity to meet and discuss the relationship with other board members or get to know the executive director personally. Just like managing teams or direct reports, the evaluation and feedback process comes down to the relationship between the board and the nonprofit leader. It could be very helpful if there is an annual evaluation process established or an evaluation tool. It just makes it easier to lean on process. Are there explicit goals that the executive director should be meeting or exceeding within their role? Is there clarity around the compensation for the executive director? Is there a bonus structure? What is the norm in the community or within the peers of this nonprofit? It's very important to understand that. If you have yet to manage in your day job, this is really an excellent opportunity to observe and practice these leadership skills of giving feedback and evaluation. Sometimes people leave for other opportunities, or they will need to be exited for lack of performance. At some point, you might have to have a difficult conversation with an executive director if the various goals are not being met. This can be really tricky because nonprofits are typically something we care about. We have a personal attachment. So having those hard conversations can be a little bit more challenging in the nonprofit space. If an executive director should leave, is there a plan in place for succession? Where is the institutional knowledge stored? Are there systems, procedures in place to keep the nonprofit functioning and making an impact? And do you know the key staff that can pitch in while a new leader is found? So questions. Is this an area where I feel I have the skills? Am I comfortable giving feedback or having hard conversations or potentially exiting an executive director should the need arise? Will I have the time commitment to the level of engagement and supervisory activities that this nonprofit might need? And does there appear to be a good relationship between the board and the executive director? Questions you could ask the nonprofit. What do the current board members and your relationship look like? Do you have an evaluation process? When's the last time you were reviewed? Is there a succession plan? How long have you been here? All of these are very valid questions. And then documents you might want to ask for are annual reports or an org chart, so you get a real good sense of the staffing. All right, we're almost there, I promise. Ensuring healthy governance. This is really important. In fact, one of our panelists is sitting or has sat on a governance committee, and it really is making sure that the fiduciary duties are the main focus here of the board members. Healthy governance with the logistical work of following board bylaws, and every nonprofit should have bylaws. These are the framework a nonprofit board uses to operate. The bylaws include board duties, term limits, meeting requirements, and basically all of the nitty-gritty details. This is where you'd want to think about how much time you can commit to being an active board member. Ask the nonprofit about their current board meeting schedule. Some boards meet 2 times a year, some meet every month. Are they in person or virtual, or how formal are the meetings? Some nonprofit board meetings can be pretty lax and conversational. Others will follow more rigid structure around making decisions. Asking the nonprofit for their bylaws will give you insight into term limits and other rules they have. You'll want to make sure that you have a director's and officer's liability insurance policy. This is really important. You might hear it referred to as D&O insurance. This is to make sure you're not personally held responsible if legal action is brought against the organization. This is very, very rare that this would happen, but I do just need to flag it. I had a colleague that sat on the board of a nonprofit school. Sadly, there was a lawsuit brought against the school, and so he was in the line of fire. But luckily, they did have this insurance, so he was protected. So I just feel responsible to highlight this, but also say this is very rare. Healthy governance is also recruiting and retaining a diverse board. While different skills, backgrounds, and lived experiences are all very important. We all know that having a group of diverse minds will produce more ideas and opinions and help inform better decisions. You should see if the current board is diverse and represents the communities and the stakeholders they are serving. If your nonprofit board has committees, these responsibilities could fall under a governance or a management committee. And as we mentioned at the top of the presentation, there could be different names for this group, but you should really ask about their structure and have some clarity around who does what. So back to the questions. I keep hammering the time to commit because that is one of the most challenging things. Can you be a reliable board member? Does the current board membership seem like a group I can work with effectively? Who are the personalities? Do people get along? How do they give and take around their discussions and decision making? Does the board have diversity? Does it represent the community? And does this board pose a conflict of interest? Questions to ask the nonprofit. How often does the board meet? Is it in person or virtual? Is it formal or informal? This is really important as well. Are there term limits? Sometimes you will find board members that have rolled through 4 terms of term limits. And that's okay if it's okay for the group and it works for the nonprofit. Other times, term limits can save you. It's time for yourself. Hey, it's time for me to jump off this board. It's time for XYZ really strong personality person is terming out, and maybe it's an opportunity to roll in someone fresh and fresh thinking. So that's a really important question. Do they have the insurance? That's important as well. Can you share the following documents? Bylaws, articles of incorporation, a board member job description. I think it is so incredibly important for a nonprofit to have that. It just establishes the role up front and it answers all the questions. And if there are challenges, it's something you can look back to or refer to. So if a nonprofit or if you're on a board right now and they don't have that, maybe it's something you could consider introducing as you get new members. I think clarity is good, clear is kind. It's great to have this up front. And then lastly, just the board of directors contact list is great to have as well. The last thing I just wanted to show, this is just a screenshot of our intranet here at Loomis. We have to report outside activity, so I just wanted to flag that to all of you to really touch base with your compliance or your legal or HR to see what the rules of the road are at your firm. Okay, next up, we are actually going to put you into breakout groups. And I know that could be some of your least favorite things to do, but I think that you will really love this activity. So we are going to, and you should have received it in your email yesterday and again this morning. There are 2 short case studies that bring up the 5 responsibilities that we just talked through. And what I'm going to ask you to do is just read through them. They're very short. And then as a group, discuss the following questions. What did you notice about this scenario? Where did you see the responsibilities? What questions would you have for the nonprofit? Are there any concerns? What would inspire you about what you saw within the cases? And this is just really personal. Would this nonprofit be a fit for you? Yes, no, why not? And then at the end, designate a group member to share out. Okay, now I can see all of you. So we'll put you into the groups. You'll have about 10, 15 minutes to discuss, and then we'll come back together and we'll talk about the cases. Okay, so let's get going because we'll do a quick discussion of the cases and then we'll move on to our panel where we have 3 peers joining us to give us some of their experiences, but also being open to questions from all of you. So the first case was about a nonprofit. It gives academic support. It's had leadership transitions. It's had a lapse in 990s. It's got some watch outs there, but then it has some great things too. So does anyone have some thoughts on our first case that they wanted to share out from their group?
Jump
All
in
right.
here.
Oh, go ahead, Alan. Let her rip.
Yeah, you really have to be motivated, dedicated to jump into this one.
And why is that?
Well, there's plenty wrong, just all over the place, plenty wrong. Well, the cause might be good. It's going to take changes need to happen to really get it in shape to be dynamic and where you'd like it to be. It's not, as we were talking in our group, not a plug and play kind of thing where you can just drop in and do a minor role. You could, obviously, the existing board has not really, there have been problems and it wasn't addressed earlier. And so there's a handful of things that have to happen here. It takes a major commitment by anyone that wants to step in and make a difference and make it right. Otherwise, you'll just be continuing the problems. The new executive director sounds motivated, and that person alone could be sufficient to turn everything around. But my experience is it's collaborative. You want a good executive director and a good board or team to work together.
Absolutely. So out of all of the things you saw in there, I mean, they lack policies and procedures. They have a lapse in their filings. They have their biggest fundraising event coming down the pike in 3 months. And then there's a board that may be a little stagnant there. It seems like it's been the same membership for 10 years. What do you think is like the first big ticket item that you would try to conquer? And it doesn't just have to be Alan, it could be anyone jumping in on this.
Good, I'll jump out.
Well,
Mike had a good suggestion in our group. He said, with the signature fundraising event that's going to take place in 3 months, it probably makes sense with all of the red flags and, probably a more tumultuous time for the organization. It's probably smart to postpone that event and try and push it out and maybe try and solve some of these issues and get to work on the governance pieces and onboarding the ED and everything.
I agree, definitely. Give the new executive director a minute to get their feet under themselves. And then I would probably jump in and be like, hey, let's think about this board, Errol, did you have a thought? I saw you unmute for a minute.
Oh, I was just gonna say the filing piece to me is pretty important. Just, you don't want to lose your right to operate and in a tax exempt status that could have really negative implications for all your donors. So I think that's pretty key.
Yep, I agree. Who would be up for the challenge of joining this board? Anyone? Oh, Ben, you would. That's great. What is it that would have you want to join it?
Well, I mean, I think obviously it's a really good cause, and it's a cause that kind of speaks to me. So I love that part of it. And there's always challenges. There's it feels like it's almost at the worst place maybe it could be. So there's only room to go up. So I like situations like that. And I think with a motivated executive director and a good governance plan, I think things can be done. And I don't know that I necessarily would cancel the event. I think you can maybe put something together at the event to talk about the changes that maybe you make in the next 3 months, so that you have your people who are obviously supporting it, but you tell them how you're mapping out the changes if you can in the next 3 months. So I definitely see a lot of red flags here. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's it could be a bad situation, and the board, the fact that they seem like they're not engaged at once every year going to board meetings. I mean, you'd have to kind of work that out, but I don't know. I like the challenge.
You like a turnaround story?
I
I
do.
like that as well. I wouldn't, and my only reason for saying that I might push it out is, gosh, I'd hate to have something untoward come out of those financial reviews that we were talking about, that Errol was talking about, and then gee, it's about the time that you're going to have this gala event have it be on the front page of the paper. So love the challenge, love the mission. I'd probably be up for it if I could have a chance to look at everything before signing on.
Right. Yeah. And who knows, maybe this event is a lifeline for them and they need it to operate, and hopefully everything is clean and good, and maybe you soldier through and have it and bring them some of the funds they need, but it's a toss up. It is. All right. Let's move to the next one. So this was an organization that does environmental education. It has a community center network. There's a lot of partners, elected officials, there's policy, there's advocacy, there's all of this going on. They have strong leadership, strong board, CEOs, community leaders. They're very clear about their donations. They want to recruit new membership. How do people feel about this? This seems like a more mature organization with a more mature board. What did people notice about this one?
I'll jump. Seems like it's well run. It's a little expensive. They seem pretty focused on, capital contributions, if you will, and, developing a bullpen of, folks coming up, or a farm system to come in and keep feeding it. But overall seems, pretty well run. Could be kind of an old boys club, I guess, with a bunch of CEOs around the table. So.
Yeah.
Are these real cases, by the way? Are these real nonprofits?
Loosely based on some nonprofits that I've come across. And there are pieces of personalities, but this case specifically is a nonprofit that's pretty well established here that I know. The mission's a little bit different, and it, yeah, but I'll let more people speak, and then I'll give my 2 cents on that.
So one thing that our group noticed was, or commented on, was that the board may be less representative of the community and the mission that they were serving, and focused perhaps potentially more on what is in it for them, or for, again, kind of to use what Randy said, that the old boys club of maybe potentially developing more leaders, not necessarily to serve the board, but to serve their own interests. And so that was it was an observation of how aligned with the mission is the board, and they're fulfilling their fiduciary responsibility of making donations. And I think one of the individuals in ours actually asked how much of the donations are coming from within the board and external, and really trying to understand how they were aligned.
Jay, did you have a comment?
I would say our group kind of questioned this idea of trying to recruit younger members into this ELC, but then also requiring the same financial commitment of them. That was going to be a challenge. And then we talked a little bit about potential blend of politics here and environmental education and volunteerism and with the business community. There were a lot of things kind of we'd want to know a lot more than what's just stated in that first. We want a little more specificity about the mission of providing environmental education and volunteerism, and understanding politically how that connects to these other elements. So.
Yeah, we questioned how effective their mission was, or how effective they are at meeting their mission, given as we said, the old boys club and the involvement with, political officials.
Exactly. And, this definitely feels or seems like a big contrast to the first nonprofit we discussed that seemed smaller, scrappier, really needs people to roll up their sleeves, get in and help them. Where this, to me, seems something that is, oh, I'm on that board, or you've looked through the laundry list of the who's who of whatever community you're in that's a part of that. And it's not to say it's bad or that their work isn't valid. It's just, what is the experience that you would like to have? I think the positive of this second board is, wow, they have a system. They have things in place. They seem a little bit well-oiled here. That would be really easy to participate as much as I want or as little as I want. Where the first case was, oh no, they need me. Like they might need me to answer the phones. Like they might need something here. So it really is, again, comes down to your personal preference of how much time do you have? What do you want to give? How can you be helpful? And where is your passion? So thank you for indulging the breakout rooms and having a good discussion. I very much appreciate that. So we're going to go into the home stretch now, and you can stop listening to me and start hearing from your peers that actually are here to share some of their experiences in board service. And please feel free, at the end, we can ask questions or have more of a dialogue. I know we're about 18 minutes left and I want people to leave on time. But I'd love to introduce, we have Melissa Gilbertson. She is the Chief Operating Officer from Mayors and Power. We have John Schoenberg. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. He is the Chief Investment Officer and Portfolio Manager at Stonebridge Capital Advisors. And then we have Errol Sonderegger. Did I say that right? The Deputy CIO at the Minnesota State Board of Investment. So thank you all for joining us and sharing your experiences. If you just want to do a quick introduction, just let us know a little bit about you and also the type of board service that you've been involved in. And we'll start with Melissa.
Hey, thanks, Melissa. I will be remiss if I did not just offer a slight correction. It is Mars, like the planet,
sorry.
and power. That is okay. It happens all the time. But since my current CEO, Rob Mars, sits right next to me, if I don't correct people, he might get upset. So Melissa Gilbertson, Mars and Power, we're an investment management firm located in St. Paul, Minnesota. I have been here since 2007 when I joined the firm, and I've been the chief operating officer for since 2022. I serve on 3 boards here in Minnesota. One is the Ordway board, which is a performing arts. So for those of you who aren't in Minnesota, it's Performing Arts Center. The second is a nonprofit for senior living facility. And then the third is the CFA Society of Minnesota, of which I am rolling off this year. And if there's anyone out there interested in serving on our board, please feel free to reach out to Shannon. I'm sure she would be happy to hear from you. And the boards that I serve on, they're long-standing, very mature boards, and we can get into a little bit of what's good about that and what can be challenging about that. But that's me.
Excellent. John?
Yeah, John Schoenberg. I'm at Stonebridge Capital Advisors. I started in the business in '87 at Piper Jaffray, and then was at IDS Ameriprise for quite a bit of time. And for the last 12 years now, I've been at Stonebridge. I got involved in Goodwill Easter Seals of Minnesota, actually at the invitation from another CFA, Joe Barsky, who I think many people would know. I got involved there because I really felt it was the best known charity probably in the nation, although a lot of people don't even think it's a charity, which is just amazing. But it's also the most misunderstood, in my opinion. So I got involved because I felt like I wanted to get the message out, and it's been a wonderful, I've been on the board 8 years. I actually timed out and they asked me to extend 1 year because we're searching for new board members. But it's been a great experience and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Errol?
Hi, yeah, I'm Errol Sonderegger, Deputy CIO at Minnesota State Board of Investment. I've been back here. This is my second tour of duty at the State of Minnesota Investment Board. But I've been back since 2019. And kind of like John, I spent a good amount of my career at IDS, Ameriprise, RiverSource, pick the name, Columbia, Threadneedle, you pick the name. But I've been back here at the state since 2019. In terms of board service, I'm the vice chair of a board of a startup nonprofit called Minnesota Financial Empowerment Initiative. And we've been, I was actually recruited to kind of start and work on this nonprofit by Jack Hansen, who's the former retired CIO of Parametric, Clifton Group in the Twin Cities. Been working on this board. It's very much, hands-on startup. It's very, very small. And so as a board member, you not quite answering the phones, Melissa, but pretty close. Definitely. Actually, maybe we are answering the phones, answering emails for sure. So a lot of hands-on work, and it's really rewarding, but it's the opposite end of the spectrum of maybe, a large board where you're really performing more of an executive function.
I don't know that people answer phones anymore, but I'm probably dating myself, but that's okay. So for each of you, how did you become involved? Were you invited by a contact? Was it a cause you cared about? Like what got you to your respective nonprofits?
I'll jump in first if we want to just keep going in the same order. Both institutes that I cared very much about and was recruited by outgoing board members.
Yeah, mine was a recruitment from a board member. It also came, we talked about this in our breakout a little bit. It also came at a time in my life where my kids were all leaving the home and I had a lot of time that I could give back. And that's really what motivated me to start getting involved in nonprofits.
Yes, similar for me. I think it was a bit of a career change as I rejoined the state board and was talking with, as I mentioned, Jack Hansen, kind of our shared passion for financial literacy education really just led us, and his newfound retirement and free time, sort of allowed him to be the mastermind and the driver behind launching this, and I was able to kind of work with him closely. So yeah, being recruited into it.
Great. So how would you characterize the board's role within the nonprofit, and how do you collaborate or work with the executive director, CEO, the team there at the nonprofit? Errol, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll start. It's so the presentation that you gave, and particularly the 5 pieces of the pie chart really resonated with me. And again, as we're very much a startup, and actually have a few faces on the dial here today that are actually part of MinFay, and so they can nod in agreement with this. It's really very hands-on and really working very closely with the executive director. And really pitching in wherever needed. And so it's a very different maybe style of or commitment than maybe a more seasoned or established organization. But if you're looking to roll your sleeves up and really have an impact, I think it's a great thing.
John, what does it look like for you?
Yeah, for me, it's Goodwill Easter Seals in Minnesota has been around for 100 years. So it's a well-established organization. We have a fantastic executive director, very fortunate, who's also been there a very long time. It's one of oversight. It's one of spreading the word. I think all of our board members really actively participate. And I would say that's the biggest thing for me is when you sign up for a board, you've got to put the meetings on your calendar, right? And the more you get involved and the longer you're there, the more responsibility you're going to take on. But getting to know the executive director, I think, is really important, to fully understand the mission and to give proper oversight. You explained it so well. Our role as a board is all of those things. And spreading the word is probably, for me, one of the most passionate things I'm about.
I would say mine is very similar to John's in the fact that the organizations I serve on, one's been around for 40 years, one's been around for almost 100 years. So the boards are extraordinarily mature. One unique opportunity that I have in my role with the nonprofit, the senior housing nonprofit, is I am actually the board chair this year. And so my interaction with the executive director or our CEO, which is brand new. He's not new to the organization, but new to the role. That was day one of first board meeting that I presided over, was voting on CEO succession. So that was an interesting time to come into, and an interesting challenge of which we learned a lot through that. But I have a very close working relationship. We have breakfast once a month. We meet in committee several times, and I would say that has been a truly rewarding experience from the perspective of moving through kind of the different rank and file of board participation into this role.
Wow, that is quite an undertaking as your first kind of foray. That's amazing.
I will say that when they approached me about being the chair, they said, nothing controversial happened. This will be a really easy year. That has not been the case.
Right.
But it's been amazing.
That's great. That's exciting. I guess for each of you, like, what do you wish that you knew before you joined a board?
I'll start. I would say the one thing, and I kind of alluded to it already, is that the longer that you're on a board, the more involvement you're going to have, right? So when I started, it was quarterly meetings, and you showed up for 2 hours once a quarter. But the longer you're on it and the more involved you get, I became the treasurer. So then I'm on the finance committee, and then I'm leading the finance committee. And then, because I'm the treasurer, I'm also on the executive committee. So it turned, those 2 hours a quarter have turned into, 15, 16 hours quarterly. And the longer you're there, the more involved you'll be. And I don't think I really appreciated that when I first got involved.
That's great.
Go ahead, Melissa.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say, I mean, it's worked out really well, but I think one of the things that resonated with me in the information that you provided, Melissa, is really just understanding your strengths and what you want your role to be and what you don't want your role to be, and making sure that that's aligned with what the rest of the board members and the organization sort of want and need from you. And as I said, it's worked out really well at MinFay for me and for the others that are on the board. But I think if I were to do it again, or next board would be very planful about, okay, what do you want from me? Do I have that time, capacity, skill, etc., and really making sure that the mission is the most important thing and the passion, but also making sure that you're being honest and genuine about the skills that you can bring to the table, and is that what the organization needs at that point?
Errol actually took what I was going to say, so I have nothing to add. That's perfect.
We have had a question come in. What is a tip you could share that has been successful in supporting a positive board culture?
I guess I'll jump in with that in my position as board chair. I think the culture of the board is everything. So very explicitly, the two things that I do is reach out to the independent trustees individually throughout the year and just ask to get together for coffee, make sure, and I sometimes will start with the ones who are more quiet on the board. So those individuals who don't necessarily share during the board meetings, but also often have a lot to share. So I will just get together with them and have coffee, ask them what is on their mind. And then one of the things that we do at the top of all of our board meetings is one, we have a mission moment. So it is really just coming together to remember why we're there. So what is the focus of our board? And then the second is we just ask an icebreaker question, and it is amazing given the different experiences and ages and diversity that are represented on the board, what people bring to the answer of those questions.
That's great. I really like the revisiting the mission because sometimes it's so obvious, but it gets lost sometimes that we don't think to revisit it.
Yeah, I would just add to that, at Goodwill, every board meeting we have, Goodwill is all about breaking down barriers to work and training people to work, not just at the stores, but in automotive, banking, construction. I mean, it runs the gamut. That's where your goods are going to. And every meeting we have a success story from somebody who's been through the program that now is successfully employed. And that really sets the tone for the whole meeting and why we're here. And so I agree with that. It's really powerful to do that.
Yeah, I would just say, from my perspective, maybe a slightly different perspective. I think those are great answers. I think for me, it's at the board level and the culture level, it's about really being able to understand where people's strengths are and really lean in, and also understand when people have time throughout their cycle of a quarter, a year, whatever, to be able to devote more time versus less and be as flexible as possible, just because that is different for everybody. And those things can really help sort of foster that culture that people lean in when they can, and it's okay if they lean out when they've got something else is going on.
Yeah, that's an excellent point of communicating what those cycles look like, either personally. I know right now I'm going through lacrosse season with my son, so my time is limited, but then also work, you've got those cycles as well. So end of quarter, whatever it is, it can be challenging. So I have two last questions before we part today, and then I will be sending some follow-up materials to everyone. What advice would each of you give to someone looking to join a board? And are you looking for new board members in your respective nonprofits? Melissa, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So the answer is yes. As I put my plug in, we are looking for new board members at CFA MN, and actually looking for new board members at Episcopal Church Homes. So if anybody is interested in low income housing for seniors and senior living, please reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation with you. We're located in St. Paul for those who are local. My advice, it would be to get involved and get involved in ways before just jumping into a board membership, is get involved at the committee level and get involved at events and see what the vibe is and talk to people who are involved and why they're involved and why they stick with it and why they like it. I think it really does help understand the mission and the dynamics of the organization.
The only thing I would say is make sure you're truly passionate about the nonprofit you're joining, because you will get more involved and you will make a difference. And then understand what your time commitment can be and make sure it's acceptable to the board, because you want to fully participate. You want to be an active member. And yes, Goodwill Easter Seals is also actively looking for foundation board members at this time.
Yeah, I'll start with that. We certainly are always, at Minfa, always looking for new board members who are passionate about financial education and have time and are motivated by the idea of working at a startup sort of bootstrapping type of organization. And in terms of advice, I would say, yeah, make sure that it's your passion. and certainly don't want to discourage anybody from this, but make sure you're honest with yourself about the time commitment that you have, and that aligns well. And then also that you're at a stage in your career development that the role that you're looking for is really a good fit, and you have those skills to bring. Certainly you can hone those skills at a board, but you want to be, I think, at a point in your career where you have skills and experiences to draw on to be most useful. Otherwise, focus on the volunteer side first.
This is all excellent advice. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. Definitely in our follow-up, we can highlight your organizations and that you are looking for new board members. It's really, really important. Just a few last words from me, and then Shannon, if you want to close us out. So what are some next steps? You've heard all about this. Hopefully we didn't scare you too much with some of the responsibilities and realities of joining a nonprofit board. But I think if you really are serious and you want to join a board, really narrow down your areas of interest. What are you passionate about? What organizations do you know about that you really want to be a part of and advocate for and give your time? Once you do that, I'm going to send you kind of a checklist of all of those questions we went through. You can have it as a guide as you talk to a nonprofit, and get some of those pieces of information and get a feel for the nonprofit and how it might be a fit for you. It's always good to clarify the expectations and responsibilities. Attend an event, a program, volunteer. As Melissa and Errol just said, it's a really good way to get their vibe, see what they're about, how they impact their stakeholder. Pre-clear anything with your firm, I have to say that. And also look into your benefits at work. There could be benefits that could help you as you serve on a board. And then just get out there and do it. We're all very talented, giving, passionate people, and this is exactly what nonprofits need. All right, Shannon.
Yeah, I also just want to express thank you to everyone that participated today. I did put my email in the chat, so if you need to get connected to anyone that was talking about board members, please feel free to reach out to me. And the CFA Society, our board nominations will go out in mid-April, so if you're interested in that. I also want to just plug locally in Minnesota, we do have the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits. That is another place that you can find organizations that are actively seeking board members. They have a job board that's also has volunteer opportunities. So it's a great organization locally if you're looking. But thank you for attending, and we'll have some follow-up information, but feel free to reach out to myself and Megan if you have any questions or you want any further information.